So we've just come off our first webinar of 2026, Cyber Risk in 2026, and covered lots and lots of stuff and had lots of attendees on this one. I think 35, 36 people joined us today, but wanted to do a bit of a deep dive with you, James and Tim, around one of the topics that was covered in there, which was around the London councils. So obviously talked about lots of instances with Instagram, and there's been quite a lot that happened in 2025, but the London councils attack really stood out. Why do you think this one matters more than people might initially realise?
So I'll start, if that's okay. Ultimately, the main reason why this probably matters and stands out is just down to the sheer recovery time. So this happened round about the 24th of November, I think, and we're now almost at the 24th of January. It's taken them the best part of 2 and a bit months to try and recover their systems. The other reason why it's important is because it highlights how the impact of a breach on a shared system can impact multiple parties. So 3 councils all used the same platform. That effectively was breached. As a result of that, all 3 councils then were impacted and had to remediate.
Yeah, I think the piece for me is, when you see incidents like this occur for organisations of this size, it sort of sets the hair running. What security controls did they have in place? What did the plans look like? I'm always surprised about the amount of time that the recovery takes in many of these incidents. We have seen that, when cybersecurity incidents occur and insurers are involved, those timelines do absolutely get protracted because they're trying to find out what's happened, what data's been taken, and that is time consuming for sure. But I think it's always a bit of an eye-opener with just how long the disruption goes on for. I think the other point on this one is it's the sheer number of people affected, hundreds of thousands of households. That's going to be leading to personal data. So you would imagine that data has been taken and probably in due course will find its way out onto the dark web. So yeah, quite a big one, lots of impact, lots of questions that, you'd like to know the answers to. And fingers crossed they get back up and running soon.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. On paper, shared services, they do make sense. They save money, they reduce duplication, they centralise expertise. So where does this model start to break down from a security point of view?
So we know that data was taken and copied and exfiltrated, and we know that ultimately it's taken 6 weeks, 8 weeks plus to do the remediation. So it suggests that the checks around recovery and instant response planning were not necessarily done. So I'm sure whoever is responsible for those 3 councils, if somebody came to them and said, if system A is breached or has a problem, you're going to be out of action for 8 weeks and you are going to have to put manual processes in place until we recover, and that's how long it's going to take. I'm sure if somebody had gone to that person and said, is that acceptable? They would have said no. So it's about making sure that they're aware of the risks, but it's also about making sure that you've ran your tests, you've checked your disaster recovery planning, you've checked your business continuity planning, and you've actually verified that you can recover in a timely manner that is in line with your expectations. It's probably also quite evident that there wasn't any form of proactive detection in place. because they copied data and exfiltrated it, and it's taken so long to recover, if that proactive platform was in place to effectively send an early warning out, there's a chance that the impact could have been lessened and they wouldn't necessarily have to rely on doing a full recovery. For all we know, they could be at the point now where it's taking so long because they have lost critical data and they're having to rebuild systems from scratch. And again, points to things not being tested.
Yeah, it sounds like the shared services actually meant that that blast radius was, well, it compounded it, made it really a lot larger than it could have been. And as you said, regardless of that kind of, even if there's early detection, so, you know, they've detected it early, they've followed guidance, activated response plans, yet weeks later, there's still disruption, services aren't up. What else could they be doing to ensure that regardless of early detection, they need to be doing more? So, you know, what else should be in play there outside of early detection?
It's difficult to say because we don't truly know what the root cause of the issue was. But the standard things that we would say to all organisations are you need a EDR product regardless. So you need endpoint detection and response. EDR is a very complex product. And because of what it does, it can generate a lot of activity. Small IT teams, and we as Phyphosis, if we didn't partner with a dedicated SOC, would struggle to manage the kind of alerts that EDR generate, proactive monitoring generate, all these sort of things. For that, you need trained security professionals. So EDR is a must, but it should be managed. So managed EDR or managed XDR, as it's sometimes referred to. But in general, all the systems that businesses use now, whether that's Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, Xero, they all generate lots and lots of information and logs. So who's tries to access it, who's trying to break in, even your traditional firewalls that you have on site. It's too difficult for individuals to monitor that 24/7, 365 effectively. You need somebody with the right qualifications, so a security operations centre that can monitor that, triage all the alerts, filter out what is really important, and only act on the important stuff and filter out all the other noise. And then ultimately, they will help with the threat hunting, they will help with the remediation, and they'll help close the gaps between when the breach happened and any backdoors and things like that.
Yeah, I think, James, you know, for me, you've kind of touched upon it. The due diligence required around the selection of a shared service platform. You know, it's viewed that it's a managed service, and yes, it will be, but are the right questions being asked? Is the right evidence being provided? So security around any platform is always layered. There's different layers, there's different approaches, there's different solutions. It's not a one and done. It has to be maintained, it has to be managed. And I think what we often see is that if the management and maintenance of these solutions isn't in the right place, it can lead to a breach. You know, vulnerabilities are being discovered all the time, exploits are being discovered all the time. And it's this iterative process of making sure the right security controls are in place, they're implemented in the correct way. But as a user of a shared service, you should expect updates, you should expect reports, you should expect evidence to tell you that that platform is managed and maintained in the right way, and that your data is safe and it's secure. but you also have an obligation to request that information. You need to know.
Yeah, that all sounds like very sage advice. This one's for both of you, really. So for organizations that are using shared IT services, managed providers, cloud platforms, what's the one uncomfortable question this incident forces them to ask themselves?
I think for me, it's about resilience. You know, what due diligence have you done around that shared service? What questions have you asked? What do you really understand about it? I could go and build a cloud in my garage, and I can offer and deliver a cloud-based solution on a shared service. That's the reality of it. So, where is the data? Where does it reside? What's the underlying technology it runs on? Is the data center secured to an ISO standard? Is it monitored? Is it maintained? Does it have the right security controls in place? And I think the big question for me is that when these services are selected, show me the due diligence you've gone through to make an informed decision to select that technology and that partner to deliver it. What assurances do you have that that data is safe, is secure, is recoverable, and is managed? And that is, again, the due diligence process required on the side of the end customer, the user of the platform, not on the provider. If you don't ask the questions, you probably won't get the information.
Yeah,
James, anything to add to that?
100% agree with that. It's exactly that. What due diligence have you done on the third parties that you rely on? Any third party provider worth anything will provide you their ISO certificate, will provide you their security policies, their procedures. You should have a set list of questions that form that due diligence that you should go to the vendor with and say, do you meet all this? You should ask them about their backup and disaster recovery plans. What is their resilience on the system? If they have an outage tomorrow, how quickly can they get you back up and running? Contractually, you should have data protection clauses within your contracts with the vendors. What a lot of vendors do is they offer service credits and things like that for outages and disasters. Ultimately, they don't mean a thing. If it's your key platform and it gets ransomware or taken offline for a week, 10% of what you pay them per month is not going to help at the end of the day. So be very wary of things like service credits and them trying to back themselves up with stuff like that, because ultimately that doesn't matter. You really want them to evidence what controls they have in place, and is that in line with your expectations? Yes, you're going to struggle to get the likes of Microsoft and things like that to amend their contracts to meet your specific criteria, but they have a lot of information already out there about what security controls and resilience controls they have in place.
Very good answers. And so if you were the CIO or the IT lead in this instance, what would be the one thing you would or you should go away and review first if this had happened to you, if you were sort of heading up the IT at the councils?
If it was me personally, I would want to make sure I was aware of all the risks. I would want an independent third-party audit taken, so I know where my shortcomings are, and then I could plan on how I would address them going forward. As we said, it's very difficult at the moment because we don't really know the root cause and everything like that, but for me, I would want to know where all the risks are and then put together a plan and a timeline of how I address those.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the issue with incidents like this is everybody's really wise after the event. It's so easy to say in hindsight, we should have done these things, we didn't ask these questions, we didn't know the answer to this. And we refer to it as, unknowingly accepting risk. So I think in this instance, for me, I'd be there thinking, well, have I done the right due diligence? Did I leave every stone, unturned? Sorry, had I turned every stone over? What didn't I know? What do I need to know? And not only that, how do I prevent this from happening again? So this is probably one of many shared platforms. So the really important point from incidents like this is that you learn, you're proactive, you start to look at other systems that maybe you're facing the same challenges with. But absolutely, as James says, I need the information, I need the data, I need to be informed.
What I would say is, it's not like they're a council, so you can't go and change your council. It's not like a platform or a vendor like Instagram or anything else like that, where you can turn around and say, all right, and vote with your feet and leave. Unfortunately, it's the residents of those councils that are going to be impacted. But it's been reported to the ICO, Met Police are investigating it, the NCSC are involved as well. So the council might get fined, but ultimately they won't lose any users as such because they're the council. I was going to say, it goes back to what we were saying earlier as well. So as part of the webinar, we said that government are introducing new security standards for public sector, and companies that fail to adhere or have a breach or something like that can be fined up to £100,000, but the government and the councils are going to be exempt from complying with this.
Seems a bit questionable, but if we could vote with our feet, I think a few of us would with our councils. Yeah, I think it's very fair to say that shared infrastructure means shared risk. So that has been really, really useful. Those are all my questions for now. Thank you both very, very much.